Oh boy, a lot to get to today. There's always a lot to get to on the Locked On Hornets podcast. We have more injuries. We have more injuries to LaMelo Ball. We have more controversy surrounding Terry Rozier. It did not look like he wore a Hornets jersey / hoodie at his arraignment today. We got to talk about if the Hornets have to get rid of their pick that they got from the Miami Heat. A lot to get to on a Monday version of Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast. And that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. I feel like the stash is stashing today, man. Did you do something different?
Well, I trim it occasionally. I think it's reached its full flower. It's almost ready to be trimmed again.
It's in full bloom. It's a full bloom mustache. Yeah, I love it. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also, check him out behind the scenes, Yahoo Sports Daily with Jason Fitz and Caroline Fenton. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio 92.7 FM. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long while it lasts. And thanks to you, yes, you, the listeners, all of them, for making the Locked On Sports Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. We really appreciate it. Lots to get to. Let's dive right in. I should say, start with the injuries, probably, with the LaMelo Ball injury. It's a pretty big deal. We've done it before. It's A-block material. I just wish it wasn't A-block material this often. LaMelo Ball and that win, by the way, against the Toronto Raptors, where Hornets played well. They win 111-86. How about holding Toronto to just 86 points? And they did this on the road. That's great. Tell me more good news. Well, we kind of got to get to the bad news because LaMelo in that win went down, slipping on the floor. You could see how nasty it was with the ankle turning as he slipped, and he would not enter the game due to ankle soreness is what they were calling it after he slipped and clearly twisted his ankle. It was nasty. It was a right degree angle or right angle. It was bad. Anyways, LaMelo Ball then would not play in this next game that the Hornets played last night against the Denver Nuggets, and he was listed out pretty immediately. Hornets listed LaMelo out with a left ankle bone bruise. Tre Mann also missed because of a right knee bone bruise. Collin Sexton also missed the game with a left quad strain. Moussa Diabate, he was questionable for this game against Denver with right knee soreness, but then he would also not play. So the LaMelo stuff, right? LaMelo not playing in this one, being injured again. I wish you didn't have so much evidence to point to when you came out last week and you said that the LaMelo Ball dream, whatever the pinnacle of that was, LaMelo playing well in a Hornets uniform and then bringing the team and LaMelo having a symbiotic relationship to reach the heights of whatever that relationship looks like. You said the dream was dead. And here's another piece of evidence you can point to with LaMelo being injured, nay, having an injured ankle again, Doug. It's wildly frustrating.
Yeah, because how do you ever trust that it's going to be any different in the future, that you are not going to have to constantly manage this injury and his status, which I guess would be fine if it weren't a player like LaMelo Ball that is, when he's on the floor, is so central to what they do offensively. And the numbers are undeniable. I mean, even this season, I think his plus minus for the team offensively is a career high. Like when he's on the floor, the Hornets just play so significantly better on offense than when he's off. How much of that is LaMelo? How much of that is an indicator of just how young and inexperienced they are everywhere else? I mean, that's a fair question. But with LaMelo and the injury status, how do you build a team not knowing if one of those core pieces is ever going to be available for more than, I don't know, like 10 straight games, 15 straight games? And on top of that, you've got Brandon Miller with his shoulder fully wrapped. I don't think he's 100%. So just the idea that you're going to see this team fully, whatever fully healthy means, Like, that's a spectrum. I don't think anywhere on that spectrum the Hornets are going to be able to hit it this season. And it just brings up this question in your mind of, like, should the Hornets just give up on this version of whatever they thought it would be if it's never going to be that?
You mentioned Brandon Miller having his shoulder fully wrapped. Boy, fully. All caps on the word fully. His shoulder looks like Ralphie's little brother Randy in A Christmas Story when his mother wraps that kid up to go out in the snowstorm and he can't move his arms.
See.
I can't move my arms down. Do you think Brandon Miller says that every day that they wrap up his shoulder? I've never seen a more thick piece of wrapping in my life than what Brandon is wearing, basically, and he's going to have to wear it every single game, is what he told us. That's Brandon. We have LaMelo here. Man, I was at a welcoming party to end Wedding Tour 2025, 3 weddings in 4 weeks. The only weekend I didn't go to a wedding was Thanksgiving. So I was at a welcoming party. Should be the only one left that we have in 2025. Got back. I don't either, to be honest with you. I say that.
I don't trust. I trust that about
it.
as much as I trust LaMelo Ball being on the floor for more than 10 games straight.
And I can't blame you for that. You have all the reason in the world to not trust that. But I get back and I see the tweets and I see people tweeting at me. Hey, happened again, Walker. Great. There's plenty of frustrating parts of it. But I think what feels so hopeless here, Doug, is that both the Hornets and LaMelo have seemingly tried everything they can to avoid this situation. When you don't have any other unexplored options, I'm sure there are that I haven't thought of, but we've explored a lot of them. No ankle braces, resting, not resting, throwing them out there on the court and trying to get into a rhythm. Well, now we can't get him into a rhythm nearly as much because we might just need to not play him anymore with the bone bruise, impingement, just straight up sprained. I don't know what else you could. New training staff. You got rid of the old training staff and you got new members there too. I don't know really what else to do to secure his ankles enough that you can trust them 100% the rest of the way. And I don't know what else LaMelo can do behind the scenes. I don't know what he is and isn't doing. I don't know. But they've explored a lot of options. And yet here you see a nasty turn of the ankle again against Toronto. And like, at least it's not one of these timetables where it's weeks and weeks upon end. Like, it's still just, hey, it's a bone bruise. We'll see. Charles Lee says the training staff is doing everything they can to get him back as soon as possible. We've heard that a million times. That's one of the more frustrating parts of all of this.
Yeah, look, I don't want to say I told you so because that's very unhelpful and not a very nice thing to say. But this is everything that I was concerned about heading into this previous offseason. And when LaMelo trade talks were ever brought up on this show, I said nightmare scenario, which we haven't gotten to yet. The nightmare scenario that I would bring up often is, what if he breaks his ankle again? Then he's absolutely, under any circumstances at that point, not tradable. And they just have to start thinking about some kind of wave and stretch if they could even do that. Like, they would have to start thinking in that territory. But we're whatever degree away from that, which is, I don't know how a team would look at this situation and say, oh yeah, I'm fine giving up multiple draft picks, multiple first round picks to acquire LaMelo Ball. I mean, maybe there's a team crazy enough to do it, but I just can't imagine that scenario. And so then if that's not the case, then I think the Hornets, if they can't get him healthy, they have to find a way, like, how do we utilize LaMelo Ball in a way that we can still move on as a team and still establish a core of healthy players that we're going to focus on and say, we're going to play in a way that fits Kon Knueppel. We're going to play, let's say we get the shoulder thing figured out with Brandon Miller in the offseason. We're going to find a way to play that suits Brandon Miller and Kon Knueppel. And to be perfectly honest, it feels like Charles Lee's already kind of doing that with the changes that he made in the offseason to the offense, in terms of just structuring it more, it's just running more sets in general. It's less jazz. It's more, structured classical music type of offense. It kind of feels like they're moving in that direction anyway. And that sort of played into some of LaMelo's frustration, at least reportedly. But yeah, I mean, I think the Hornets have to figure this out. If it's time to move on, it's time to move on. If that means they can trade LaMelo, great. And if that means they have to take less, great. And if that means they can't bear to do that, then they have to do something, because whatever this is not working and just going to result in them missing the play-in for the next couple of years. If they're depending on LaMelo to be healthy, I think it's going to mean no postseason until the contract runs out.
All right, let's continue. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
He's everywhere!
More LaMelo talk, more injury talk, Terry Rozier talk again. All that's coming up next, LOH. This episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you do. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again, you can channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends Advanced Tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Before we start the second segment, I do want to tell you about the Everydayers Club. Thank you for making Locked On Hornets your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. That's right. Join the Everydayers Club today and get Locked On Hornets with no interruptions, members only, Discord access, and more, all just for $5 a month. Or if you want to save $50 a year, all you have to do is go to lockedonhornets.supercast.com and check the link in the show notes to learn more. Thank you for making Locked On Hornets your first listen of the day. And thank you for making us, again, the #1 sports podcast network. Again, if you're a true diehard fan, you can go to lockedonhornets.supercast.com and be a part of the Everydayers Club. Again, we're going to be talking about all of the LaMelo injuries, all the injuries afterwards. It's pretty brutal around here once more. And that's the thing with LaMelo. You talked about quite a bit there after the frustration of not being able to figure out what the problem is and figuring out how to find a solution to the problem despite a bunch of attempts at it. So the trade piece of this is interesting, with him having been brought up in a whole bunch of trade rumors. Do the Hornets actually want to move on from him if they're going to be given something close to a fair price? It seems like that's more believable than the LaMelo wanting out part. I don't know. I trust LaMelo. I believe him when he says he's actually not really wanting to get out of here, despite the Kelly Eco report. In the report, when you clicked on it, it was more about the Hornets than what the headline indicated, which seemed clickbaity, right? So, okay, if the Hornets are really ready to move on from this, how badly do they want to? And do they have an opportunity? Here's the thing. I hear you on saying that they could have traded LaMelo going into the offseason just last year, because you're right. It's not going well. The injury part of this, it's not going great. You know, if you were to trade him, I'm also with you in that I don't think that there would be a lot coming back in return, like for whatever this version of LaMelo is, which is a less than 50 games a year LaMelo. And you can just only give up so much to go get that guy. He still makes a difference. You mentioned the on-off numbers. I looked at him according to Cleaning the Glass. He's in the 96th percentile offensively. When making a difference, they are plus 12 points per 100 possessions with him on the floor. Like, clearly makes a monster difference offensively still for this team. As frustrating as it all is, right? I keep going back to that word. As disgruntled as you might be, you don't have to trade him right now. You don't. You don't have to trade him and just take pennies on the dollar just to wash your hands and get rid of him. Some patience. Yes, I said the word. We've been patient this entire time. Some patience in terms of the value that might come back, I think, is probably the shrewd move. Because if you do trade him for nothing, well, okay, I guess you got rid of LaMelo, which I think would be more valuable if he was a malcontent, but he's not a malcontent. So if you still have LaMelo on the roster, yeah, it's a lot of money, no doubt. Cap's still going up, still a decent chunk of change. I don't want to deny that. But we've seen contracts that are a lot of money that can't be moved until the very last second when, for instance, the GM decides, hey, there's no reason to trade you right now. I'm going to wait until the right opportunity takes place. And they just hold on to this guy and hold on to that contract up until they squeeze as much value as they possibly can down the road. And in the meantime, LaMelo still has a chance to salvage it, right? Like, so I all that to say, I do agree with you. And it's not doomsday scenario right now, but it's not great. It's clearly not great, even if it's not the worst scenario possible. And I will say, as urgent as it feels at times to move on from the LaMelo experience to some people, I would argue, despite that feeling, that sense of urgency that you feel, like you actually don't have to move off of LaMelo until you do what you deem right for your team.
I would say a couple of things. One thing I forgot to mention in the first segment is I didn't really see the injury as this latest injury. Like, thinking back on the play, I didn't see it as like super gruesome. Like, I watched it, I had to watch it a couple times to like say, oh yeah, I guess it, what, oh yeah, right there. Okay. I can kind of see, but it, like, I'm an expert in LaMelo ankle turns at this point. I've seen so many of them and watched them so many times. I just saw this one and I was surprised, honestly, that it resulted in that he immediately wanted off. And I think that's what concerns me, is that it can be, something major. It can be something minor. It's just that his ankles have taken quite a beating over these many years. And so, there is harm in constantly having to get him back into the lineup, ramp him up. The offense changes dramatically when he's on or off, because you can look at those on-off numbers and say, wow, look at how great the offense is when LaMelo Ball is on the floor, and look how bad it is when he's off of it. You can look at that and say, we must get LaMelo back. Or you can look at that and say, man, the constant on-off, don't know when he's going to be available. Is he available for 20 minutes? Is he available for 30 minutes? I don't think he's ever going to be a 37-minute player. I just don't even now I'm starting to think, what is his role? Is his role as an everyday starter? Does that make sense for him anymore? Does that make sense for the way his body is responding to all of this? These are difficult questions that either the Hornets should really give some legitimate thought to, or I think it would honestly, even if they did take because see, the value of him is all in how you think of him. If you think of him as former all-star, potential all-star, 37 minutes per, game player who can, do all of these. If that's how you think of him, then of course you're going to inflate his value to a certain point. But if you're realistic about what you've actually gotten from LaMelo Ball over the past couple of seasons in terms of consistent production, not in terms of, we've got a few games here and there. And what have the results been on your season? What are the macro results of LaMelo Ball constantly being put in and out of this lineup? There is a value of the franchise being able to move on and develop a roster knowing that there aren't going to be those wild swings in how the offense plays. So all of that to say, I think the Hornets have to seriously consider what the future of this franchise looks like. And if it doesn't look like LaMelo Ball playing at an all-star level, with 35 minutes per game at 65 games, I don't know that the value of the contract makes any sense. So moving on would be appropriate.
Well, yeah, and the value of the contract, look, as much as we can go through the numbers, and he does make a big difference when he's out there, it's all about a question of availability with LaMelo and some ability, but availability is the big one. And you can still, I think, you talked about it a little bit, I don't think you have to depend on LaMelo with some of the other pieces that you have around you. Some of the things in that Kelly Eco report, you can start to put a lot more on the plate of Brandon when Brandon's healthy, which that's an issue because Brandon doesn't, to me, like you can see some decent enough process stuff from him, but you know, he missed a bunch of mid-range jumpers. What was it the other night? Or at Denver is the game that I'm thinking of. So just last night, like Kon Knueppel, you can, right? We see that. So those are the two guys that you can focus on without LaMelo. You have other answers. Whereas let's go back 2 years ago, or let's even go back last year. You didn't have Kon, and for most of the season, you didn't have Brandon. 2 years ago, you didn't have Kon, and you did have Brandon. But 3 years, right? Like, you don't have to be as dependent on LaMelo. So that goes a long way in helping you move on while LaMelo is on your roster. And, like, viewing LaMelo as a part of your team is purely additive, where even if he's taking a large amount of the cap, and I get it, but like to me, waving and stretching is such a doomsday scenario that I would like ridicule. You just can't do it. Like that's not even something that happens. So really, the realistic worst case scenario is trading him for nothing. Just like, please God, take him away. And I'm not at please God, take him away. We'll take a few seconds and all of the salary filler, the matching salaries. Like we're not there. Like as much as it, again, that's the hard part. It feels like you need to move on. You need to move on as much as possible. And I get why people feel like that, except you actually really don't. You don't have to. And if we continue to deal with these injuries, yeah, it really hurts. But I still think trading him for nothing is worse than having him on your team at $40 million.
No, I don't. You don't have to do anything. I think they should seriously consider it at the trade deadline. And if they don't get a good enough offer, then I think that, and they end up getting a top 3 draft pick in the lottery, then I think they should seriously consider it at that point, because then you're going to have Brandon Miller, Kon. You're going to have like 3 top. Kon's playing like a top 2 pick right now, but you're going to have a top 2 pick, Kon Knueppel, and then another top 3 pick in a what's looking like a great draft. You know, then in that scenario, I think it's like, all right, look, it's time. You have to move on at a certain point if a player is not going to, if a player of LaMelo's effect is not going to be available. This would be totally different if he was like, oh, a 6th man, wasn't making $50 million. Like, all of this context matters. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you that they don't have to do something this instant. But every single one of these injuries, I think, just continues to chip away at whatever value. And so you're just pushing that risk off. And we just have no signal. We have zero signal that LaMelo Ball can stay on the floor and be healthy and contribute consistently. They're so scared of it. The organization is so scared of it that they're frustrating LaMelo Ball because they're scared to play him a certain number of minutes. Like, I just don't know how you operate as like a winning basketball team under that scenario. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and the other thing is, here you mentioned 37 minutes with LaMelo. Like, you don't think he'll ever be that kind of player. You know, perhaps not a great sign that the one time that he played 37 minutes this season was the game right before he got injured. He played 37 against New York. You don't want to see that. That's aggravating. And like that, what do you do? What do you do if you're Charles Lee in the front office on how you handle this guy? That's the tough part, man. You know what else sucks about all of this? I know he missed every 3-pointer, but LaMelo was 4 of 9. He was 4 of 5 from 2-point range. He was actually, the process, it was starting to get there. I think you saw better paint drives in general, facilitating, making the right pass for others. And that goes to the whole rhythm of it all. It's just let him get into rhythm. Okay, that's a great excuse, except once he does, that's when he leaves again. Because it was happening. To me, it was happening, and then he gets injured.
These are hard decisions. That's what the money's for, Jeff Peterson. Like, that's when you get in the big boy seat, that's what it's all about. You have to make the hard decisions. And I'll tell you something else. Just my read on how the fan base has evolved on this, I don't believe. Look, there's always going to be somebody that says, "Oh, you didn't get enough." Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many picks. You get, 5 picks for somebody. It doesn't matter. Somebody's always going to say, I valued that player way higher. I think in general, this fan base is ready to move on to something that's more consistent that they can, because the problem with LaMelo Ball and the injury history is that it's very difficult now to envision a future with a healthy LaMelo Ball. I'm not sure anyone can do it unless they're totally like LaMelo Ball stand, delusional about what the future nobody can they can't make it happen in their mind anymore. And so when that happens, I think, if Jeff Peterson were to make that hard decision and move on, generally, even if the value came in at somewhat under what most people think he would be worth, relative to like all-star level talent, 50-point games that we've seen, triple doubles, all this stuff, all these records, I think generally the fan base would understand at this point and say, okay, Kon Knueppel, Brandon Miller, time to move on.
We won't get another injury report until Thursday with the Hornets' next game coming Friday. They get a long rest here. They played the Nuggets last night. They do not play again until they take on the Bulls at 7 o'clock on Friday. So we'll see what reports we get until then from people at practice, whatever. If he's suiting up, maybe keep your eyes out for the tweets, for the videos, for the people that are covering Hornets practice. But as far as the Hornets injury report goes, we can expect that on Thursday. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Unfortunately, there are other reasons to check out that injury report. All of them are starting to pile up. We'll get to that, give you some observations as to what we saw in this game against the Denver Nuggets, and give you an update on the Terry Rozier situation. The Hornets, they have refused to comment, but is there a possibility that the Hornets would actually have to give back the Miami pick that turns unprotected in 2028 if the Heat miss the playoffs in 2027? That and plenty more to come on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays, they move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment, live betting is the best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Talked about the other injuries at the beginning of the podcast. The guys that did not suit up in this game against Denver. Collin was out with the quad injury. Tre Mann with the knee injury. Moussa Diabate also did not suit up in this game with right knee soreness. He was the only questionable one. Everybody else was listed as out. But as we got closer to that Denver game, Moussa would end up not playing. Brandon did. He went 5 of 19 from the field. Did hit 40% of his threes on 10 attempts from beyond the arc. And again, 17 points, but still just not a whole lot of shots made. How about this? 1 of 9 from inside the 3-point arc. Missed, to me, a decent amount of mid-range jumpers. And we talked about that, what looks to be this monstrosity on his shoulder. And we joke about bubble wrapping dudes when we want to protect them. Well, they got to go play the sport. Basketball players get paid to play basketball. And it's true. I think there is bubble wrap under there. I think there's all sorts of wrapping. I think there's saran wrap. I think there's bubble wrap. I think there's athletic tape wrap. It is this monster shoulder that he has out there every time he suits up, and it has to be affecting him. And Brandon even said that he's going to have to get used to it because it's probably going to be on the entire season.
Yeah, look, I mean, him being so young and having missed so much time last season, I feel like I have to be okay with this because he needs experience. Like, he needs to be out there, even if he's got to work through this shoulder thing this season. Like, just having him out there and seeing NBA defenses and playing through these stretches, particularly in a season that, like, wins and losses, the result at the end of the year, I don't know how much that really matters anymore. But what matters is having Brandon out there, learning how to play with Kon learning how to play with Brandon Miller. That is important, even if he's not playing 100%, even if we can't make huge judgments, even if he falls in all of these, top 100 player rankings. I think it's important that he's out there as long as the organization is confident that it's not, and he's confident that it's not going to result in an immediate re-injury. And it doesn't seem to. I mean, he's going to probably battle soreness all year long. Probably just going to be in and out as they manage the pain of that shoulder injury until it can be totally alleviated in the offseason, possibly with some kind of surgery. But yeah, short-armed a lot of those mid-rangers. If he faded away, it just did not get to the rim. So he's just going to have to make the adjustments and look at it. But this was an interesting game because you had no LaMelo Ball, you had no Collin Sexton, and you had no Tre Mann. 3 guys that can at times dribble the air out of the ball. And so the Hornets were forced to move the ball. And the offense looked a little better as a result at times. It functioned a little better. And I think a lot of people in the Every Hornets box score chat were like, we need to move Collin Sexton, Tre Mann. They're on the ball too much. Okay, Denver doesn't have a great defense. And so it looked really good that night. But if you're up against a team with a good defense, you need people that can create advantages on the ball, like Collin Sexton getting to the rim. The theoretical idea of Tre Mann and LaMelo Ball at his best, those are players that can go get you a bucket when the defense is really intense. And it wasn't, although the Nuggets had a good game plan in terms of Kon Knueppel. They said, hey, kid, welcome to the top of the scouting report. We're going to double you every time you run one of these little cute DHOs that has been getting you to the middle of the floor and causing all this chaos. No, sir. No, kid. Not tonight. We're gonna double you to death and force you to take 3-point shots. So Kon was a little bizarro. He was a rough night from 3, but just and until later in the game started to pick it up a little bit. But yeah, I mean they made life hard on Kon. And here's the thing, Kon, that's good experience for him because we talk about check boxes, and one of the check boxes for a young player, if they're going to become a star in this league, is you start off, people don't take you seriously, and then all of a sudden you're at the top of the scouting report. How do you respond to that? Do you get into the film sessions, break it down, and then can you level up from there? Particularly if LaMelo Ball stays on the injury report, we're gonna see that really soon from Kon Knueppel as defenses continue to adjust.
Yeah, so you're right about Kon, by the way, picking it up very late. I won't say too late. They were in the fourth quarter. Like, it was, I don't know if you ever trusted them because Denver's just so good and Jokic controls everything. When you listen to the national podcast and they talk about how amazing Jokic is, we all know this to be true. We watch basketball as well, but just paying a little closer attention to this game, Doug, every single possession that Denver has offensively, they are going to get a good shot because of that guy being out there on the court. And Terrence Oglesby referenced this in the postgame, but there was a possession where Jokic had the ball in the high post and held on to the basketball through almost the entire duration of the shot clock, and then decided with about 4 seconds left, okay, there's enough space for me to shoot this. And so he holds on to it, and then he shoots it, and it's bango. And me and Olivia are watching, and we are dying laughing. Like, it wasn't one of those, oh my God, that's crazy. I was laughing. It was somebody told me a really good joke, and I couldn't stop. Like, that's the stupidest thing I've seen. Every single possession, Denver has a good shot. And so that, you just tip the cap. Better basketball team, one of the best players of all time. Cool. Kon Knueppel played well at the very end. It was a rough go for him for all the reasons that you just stated, and it was going to be tough for the Hornets to get a victory, even if it was on their home floor. More Brandon Miller stuff before we move on to Terry stuff, and then maybe some final observations of this game. Just the Brandon shot diet. I do wonder if the shoulder is going to limit him and his frequency at the rim. The frequency is still kind of hovering where it's always been, Doug. He was in the 18th. It was 18% of his shots taken at the rim his rookie season, 16 last year, 18 again. So that hasn't really changed. The accuracy is pretty good. He's taken a lot of mid-rangers. It's up from last season. 33% of his shots are from the mid-range. Missed a decent amount yesterday. The points per shot attempt for Brandon, they're not great. They oddly enough, they have won 3 of the last 4 that Brandon Miller has participated in. I don't know if that's anything at all. It's such a small sample, but the shot hasn't been falling for most of those games. that guy and Kon, like those are the two players that you have to rely on if LaMelo is going to miss time. And, the rookies, those are going to be some other storylines as well. So the Brandon shot diet is going to be interesting as it pertains to his injury history. Any last thoughts on what you saw against Denver? And if you wanted to have any Toronto thoughts as well.
Hornets fought hard. I mean, that's, missing so many players. I guess it's not a surprise because it's, it elevated guys like Liam McNeely who are trying to put their stake in the ground and say, hey, I belong in the league. And he had 4 triples in this one before a thigh injury limited him in the second half. I think he only had like 5 minutes or so in the second half. Bridges kind of led things generally, but he was 0 for 6 from 3, like could not hit a shot from the corner. If he hits like 2 or 3 of those, I think would have changed the calculus a little bit in the second half. But instead, he was missing, Kon was missing, and Brandon were missing all at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just like no shot against a Nuggets team that, if we're being honest, was operating at like 80%. They were not treating that as like game 4 of the Western Conference semis, right? So this was just another good learning experience, and I'll never complain about getting to watch professional basketball.
That's true.
I won't do it. I just won't do it. I'm not going to lament watching the teal and purple play professional basketball. And it's particularly when they try. I mean, everybody tried.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a real basketball game. I don't remember the last time the Hornets had played a real basketball game. This is very difficult, to treat it as such. That wasn't a real basketball game.
It seemed unreal from what Nikola was doing at like 50%.
Jamal Murray. Right. Jamal Murray had like 30 points in the first quarter.
He would turn it on when he wanted to, and then it was like, all right, well, yeah, Hornets did battle though. Like, hey, Denver, if they sleptwalk, that's fine. They almost sleptwalk a little too much. Like, it was possible.
That's their problem. That's generally been their problem the past few years.
Yeah. Okay. There are some Tijon Salon stuff to talk about. Maybe we do that tomorrow. Like,
we got plenty of time. Hornets 4 days off. We got lots of segments to fill.
Tijon is having quite the interesting stretch since being called up from Greensboro, so we should discuss him as the week goes on. But we'll want to give you some of the Terry Rozier stuff because Terry Rozier, I'll word this correctly. I just wanted to make sure I get this exactly right. Terry Rozier pleads not guilty to the sports betting charges, and he was instructed by Magistrate Judge Clay Kaminsky not to gamble, have firearms, or to have any contact with victims, co-defendants, and witnesses, in the case. It's spelled the same way, too, Kaminsky. Oh, unbelievable. Anyways, yes.
It's like when you have a dream and just random Hornets will show up in the dream that have nothing to do. Does that only happen to me? Am I the only one? Where Ramon Sessions is in my dream all of a sudden? Is that the
I think I'm having deja vu. I think that's the second time that I've referenced like Ramon Sessions this week for something like that. Anyways, so yeah, Terry Rozier having appeared in court and pleading not guilty to sports betting charges in the news again. But there's some Hornets connect here too. So just real quickly, Bobby Marks, Tim Bontemps wrote about some of the stuff that Miami could do in terms of filing a grievance with the league for not being informed about the investigation before the trade. Yep.
Good luck.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you. Yeah. Sources told ESPN that the Heat have not decided if they're going to file a grievance, and the grievance would be that the NBA and the Hornets did not disclose the information on the investigation when the Heat traded for Terry Rozier in an attempt to go on a deep playoff run. Because, in part, Rozier being on the roster, it is rare that a team files a grievance, no matter the situation. The Hornets, for example, it's hilarious. They were frustrated over last year's trade that was rescinded, bringing back Mark Williams after he was traded to the Lakers. But the Hornets, they put out some statements voicing their displeasure, but there was no grievance filed. So the Hornets also, they declined to comment when ESPN asked if they were aware of the league's investigation before the trade.
I plead the fifth.
Yep, that's right. And, it looks like Miami... just to try to put a bow on this, it looks like Miami is going to be frustrated themselves over having traded for Terry Rozier, who was amidst an important and serious investigation, and it seemed like they were the only ones that didn't know on the conference call to conclude the trade. It feels like The Hornets knew about it. The NBA knew about it. And the Heat, they were the only ones on the conference call that didn't know about it. And yet, there's nothing they can do because there's nothing in the bylaws that say anybody had to disclose this information when you were trading for them. And even if you did file a grievance, we're not sure that the Heat would actually gain anything from it. And it doesn't feel like there's anything to gain from it, as angry as Miami can be about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is not a charity organization, okay? None of these are charity organizations. This is competition. Everybody's playing by the same set of rules. And if the Hornets play by the rules, and they play by the rules, and if you don't like it, sorry. Do you think Uncle Pat would have disclosed information that he didn't have to in some kind of trade negotiation?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Are you kidding me? Do you think Pat goes in there and is like, hey, I've done Oppo on my own player. Let me open the folder and show you every bad thing about the player that I'm trying to trade to you. Are you kidding me? This is absurd. This is like total. This is just I can't deal with this. I cannot, particularly from Miami. I can't. Here's the thing: the Terry Rozier trade was a bad trade. Everybody knew it was a bad trade. It had nothing to do with any of this, by the way. And also the Hornets. Maybe they knew there was an investigation, but they were playing Terry Rozier, and they planned to play Terry Rozier because he was cleared to play. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. I don't even think Adam Silver or the NBA knew that this was coming, that Chauncey Billups and Terry. No one had any idea that this stuff was coming. So this whole thing is absurd.
Yeah, and by the way, like, you're right. The NBA can say that they never cleared him of any wrongdoing, but they couldn't find anything enough to keep Terry Rozier from playing. And I have to imagine the Hornets knew something. I don't know how much they knew, but it has to be kind of weird when Terry Rozier is just gone and or amidst an investigation and the Hornets don't know anything about it. I would bet against it. And if the Hornets didn't know anything about it, I would think they just come out and say it. I would think they would. But they declined to comment on it. You're right. Last thing, the Hornets, they can win this. It's not even anything they win, I guess, but based off of a technicality, they didn't have to tell you anything, just like they understood, hey, this sucks that the Lakers rescinded the trade, but if the Lakers did not deem Mark Williams able to pass a physical conducted by their own trusted doctors, then that's within the law. Like, they can do that if they want to. And the Hornets, they got mad about it. The Lakers won off of a technicality. The Hornets, looks like they're going to maybe win this off of a technicality, in that there's nothing in the laws that say they have to disclose this information. Either way, just to update everybody on it, I don't think anything's going to come from this. I don't think the Hornets are going to have to give up that pick. That'll do it. Locked on Hornets.
They'll have to get that pick from my cold dead fingers.
Especially if it's unprotected. No.
Yeah, are you kidding me? I'm going to plead the fifth pick. That's what I'm going to plead.
The fifth overall. I plead the fifth overall pick. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. Check out Doug, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also, Yahoo Sports Daily. I'm Walker Mayo. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
Cry me a river, Miami.